So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are in for an educational enlightening this afternoon. Our keynote speaker is a young man who is very passionate about criminal justice reform. I met him in 2018 in Philadelphia during an event that was hosted by Move On. He was in law school at the time, and it was a joy just to be around him in that environment, but even more so to follow his journey since that time. In 2020, when our Indivisible group endorsed Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, he was one of our keynote speakers for that event. Today, he is a staff attorney fellow at the Exoneration Project in Chicago. He received his law degree from Northwestern Pritzker School of Law in 2020. He has served as an Articles Review Board member on the Journal of Criminal Justice, Criminal Law and Criminology. In May 2020, he received the Northwestern Law School Leadership Award for the graduating class of 2020. He currently serves as a co-mentor chair on the executive board of the New Leader Council Chicago chapter and co-policy director for Young Democrats of Illinois statewide executive committee. Today, it is my honor to introduce to you our friend, my friend, Attorney Paul Jones II. Welcome, Paul.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. And my apologies for being late. I got kicked out of my working space. I'm in Starbucks now. It's good to be here, everyone. Good to meet everyone, see everyone. The way I'll just kind of give an overview of kind of work I do, and the way I was kind of thinking about it is that this could be more of a Q&A discussion, conversation, and we can kind of all come away and learn something today. So thank you again for having me, and I appreciate being here. As Evelyn said, I'm a wrongful conviction attorney with the Exoneration Project Civil Rights Attorney. We represent folks who have been wrongfully convicted, mainly of serious crimes such as murder, things of that nature, who have strong claims of actual innocence, and we help them get exonerated and get certificate of innocence. Primarily our clients are in Chicago, but we do go all over. But I don't know if you guys know, Chicago is the capital of wrongful convictions. So we do a lot of police brutality cases. A lot of our victims are John Birch victims, things of that nature. So we do what we can to help them find some type of justice. And so the way the wrongful conviction process works is there's 3 stages to it. One, you have to file a wrongful conviction petition. It's pretty easy to get past that part. You just pretty much have to show that a petition is not frivolous, as they say. In other words, just there's some type of substantial claims to your allegations, or evidence to your allegations. The second stage is the motion to dismiss stage, which the state comes in. That's where all the craziness comes in, where the state wants to extend things and question the integrity of the victims and things of that nature. And then once you get past that stage, you get to what's called evidentiary stage, where you're able to bring in these new claims, these new evidence that shows that the person is actually innocent of a crime. And that stage is key, because once you get past that stage, you get what's called your certificate of innocence. And that is kind of the end of that process. You can begin your civil process after that. And for us, wrongful conviction is really all about, we're kind of the ones that people hate the most, because we're telling judges and prosecutors, hey, even though you did all this stuff and, said all these things all these years ago, we're saying that all that is wrong, and we're showing new evidence why that is. So we're not, the most popular attorneys in the on the prosecution side, on the criminal justice field. So, but we work hard, and we go against them, and we say, hey, we really believe in our clients and and their claims of innocence, and we think you have it wrong. So that's kind of like a little bit general, just an overview, kind of what I do. I think our work was kind of made popular by Brian Stevenson, and his book Just Mercy, as well as the movie The Past. So now we're starting to get more people interested in our work. So yeah, that's a little bit what I do. I'd love to. I know we can. I can talk a little bit more about a particular topic, or we can start with Q&As. But yeah.
So take it away, Jaden.
What are some challenges that come with this? You just mentioned that it can be difficult doing this job that you do. So what are some challenges you face on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jane. I think the biggest challenge, number one, is the law is like really, it makes it really, really hard to have these things go. So I guess let me back up. Prosecutors and judges, they put in, a lot of work into these cases to prove that folks are convicted by reasonable doubt. And so because of that, it's very hard to convince judges that, hey, the evidence that prosecutors put forward were bad, or the prosecutors knew that there was some evidence that could exonerate our clients, but they decided to put that forward. And actually, just recently, it was really hard to convince judges that police officers were capable of lying. It was very, very hard up until the unfortunate death of George Floyd to make these arguments. Judges and a lot of the judges too were former prosecutors, so that kind of added to the mindset. So the biggest thing is like just trying to go up against that. I guess the institution, because that's what you're going against every day. The institution that says, "Hey, you don't care about police brutality. We just care about getting our conviction numbers up." So I'd say that's kind of like the biggest thing. And then law around it is really complicated. There's so many judges, the way they interpret law, these different issues, it's kind of all over the place. And so because of that, it's hard to really kind of have like a really standard approach to these things, even if you have like officers are involved who are just bad actors, bad guys, but still it's not the easiest way to go. So I'd say those are the two biggest things.
As is the case with many professions, there can be misconceptions about what you do. So what would you say are some top misconceptions?
Yeah, I think the common misconception is I think that it's definitely not as cool as it may look like. People say, I say that because I had a lot of folks that have come up to me and said, "Hey, I saw Just Mercy. The work looks so cool. It looks pretty fast. It's like these cases take so long, and they're so intensive. Like you're going through thousands of documents looking for like one particular piece of evidence that could like hopefully make or break your case." That part is like that's a misconception of that. I mean, it might take anywhere from like a couple years, 5, 10 years, even more than that. It all depends really on how fast, unfortunately, the prosecutors want to move the case along. So that part is into it. And I think too, a lot of times, folks forget that even if you we're dealing with human beings, we're all human, right? So if you've gone through like 10, 20 years of trauma, you've been in jail for a crime you didn't commit, like there's a lot of mental trauma there. And yes, going through the process, and let me take a step back. And then you're going through this process, you're innocent, and you keep getting delays and delays and delays over and over. That adds to that mental trauma. So by the time you actually get to the point where, okay, we actually have won, it's been about 5, 10 years since you actually served your sentence. Almost half your life is gone. You would think that, we get this and it's supposed to make life better, but it's just not the case. I mean, it helps, definitely helps, but it's not, and that's the hardest part because, a win. What is a win? I guess, in that you do fight for justice, but in the day, it does make the clients feel better, but it always goes back to I spent all my years for something I didn't do, and that part is like really, really difficult. But I think the misconception there is that you do this, you get this done, and everything is all better. That's just not simply not true.
Okay, Paul, I think you had a question, right?
Yes, sir. So yes, ma'am. So for me, I come from having an actual athletic background, and I think it's common how like utilizing what we actually mentioned in playback when getting a recording. Like think of a referee when you see an instance and like you say, "Oh, this is a foul," but the refs don't call it that way. I'm curious to know your perception in regards to cases where you might have found yourself with the right evidence to be able to prove and showcase that someone actually is innocent, but either as an attorney, we didn't do our best job conveying or persuading how this information proves that one might be innocent. So it's like, how does that process go if you might have a case of the right evidence, but you might have not did an actual great job performing or executing how to properly showcase to get someone exonerated or prove that this person might be innocent of a crime? Or if you come across where, like how you mentioned before, going through the probing and recording process of having someone say that they might be innocent and actually coming or discovering evidence that this person might be guilty. It's like, oh man, like we were trying to represent someone and they actually were guilty of crime. Like I'm curious to know your thoughts from that.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Paul. I feel like that's like the name of the game every day with us. Um, Honestly, it's difficult because we really try to like take pride in doing our work and like putting our best case forward for our clients. So like we're trying to dot our I's, cross our T's, and despite that, you will have judges who are just like they're supposed to, like you said, play the referees, but they're not calling the balls or strikes. It's very clear that they're thinking a certain way. Um, and that part is tough. I don't really, that part is really tough. And I think the best way that we kind of deal with that is we just keep going hard. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. Stop me if you are. There's appeal process. So anytime a judge comes up with a certain decision, if it's not a decision we agree with, we appeal it and we keep going and going on. It'll go to the next higher level judge, and if that judge agrees with it, it will reverse what the previous judge had done, and we kind of keep our case forward going on that. And so that's what we do. We don't ever stop. We just keep going and going until we exhaust all our options, and we try to get the best outcome we can. That's kind of the only way we do it, and we can kind of deal with it because, unfortunately, the law is the law. But what we can do is we can, not just take and sit down and okay, you don't like our case, all right, cool. Well, we're gonna keep going. We believe in our client. We just keep on. And I'll tell you this though, it definitely, just being honest, it pisses a lot of judges off, but we're doing it not for them. We're doing it for our client. We're doing it, to get them justice. So we keep doing what we got to do, and that's how we kind of go about that.
You definitely play a role in criminal justice reform. So what would you say, or who would you say benefits most from criminal justice reform and the work that you and your colleagues are doing?
Yeah. So I'd say, well, in terms of who benefits, are you saying like in terms of the populations, or like can you explain a little bit more? I'm sorry.
Yeah, more in the population. So people who were incarcerated, how do they benefit from this?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is that for them, well, okay, I'll talk from from a client perspective and like more broader. So definitely our clients benefit from the mere fact of that finally they have that proof, they have that vindication of, hey, I'm innocent. When you've been told over and over, you're guilty, you've done this, and in your heart of hearts you haven't, it does mean something to have, at least for them, it does mean something to have that, just that official stamp of, okay, yes, you were exonerated, you were innocent, you were wrong. And so it benefits them in that sense. And another part too, I think on a broader level, it benefits Black and brown communities, especially us. With our cases, what we're doing, we're not only exonerating individuals, we're also illuminating issues of police brutality. We make it a conscious effort that, we don't just say, if we're talking about cops that have abused our clients, we're not just going to put it on the radar, we're going to bring light to that abuse as well, because we need to show that there's systemic issues going on in these police departments that are contributing to Black and brown folks being incarcerated and being on the front end of the criminal justice system. And so, well, we're really like passionate about that piece of work because, hopefully the ideal goal is for us to not be in work any longer. If there is not a wrongful conviction job market, I guess you want to say, then we've done our job. We've done good. But in order to do that, we have to illuminate these broader issues in the criminal justice. So that's how we use our case in that sense to help Black and brown communities, to not just use them as like a way to help the individual clients, but also affect this broader social change in our own way. We all have a role to play in this, So.
How do you pick your clients? I know I saw something with the Innocence Project, and they get so many requests and so many letters. And so are you guys able to handle all the requests that you get, or how do you choose your clients?
Yeah, that's a really question. So we actually work with Innocence Project a lot. And so one thing, we have like a very intensive evaluation process. We get a lot of letters, so it's like hard to stay on top of things. But one thing we do is that we have a meeting with the clients. We hear their story. We get a sense of kind of the facts of the case, but not just the facts, but also how they are as a person, so we're not just asking about, what happened with the case, but tell me about yourself, are you a family person? What were you like growing up? What were your interests? And like really build that human connection. That helps, kind of get a sense of, who a person is and where they are. So after we kind of have that process, we do what's called a limited retainer, where we use that to begin our limited investigation. So we'll like request court documents, contact family members, get any information we can, and we go literally page by page, like thousands of documents to see, okay, where where are the issues, is stuff adding up, and like one of the biggest things I say we do, we look at police reports and see, was there evidence of police brutality, was there evidence of improper eyewitness identification procedures, things of that nature. We try to see if there are like common themes in that. And so once we have that, then we go to the last question. Okay, do these actually show that our client this potential client may actually be innocent of the crime they've been convicted of? Because one thing we are pretty big on is we take clients that we really truly believe are innocent. And so that's kind of like the last straw of that. So once we kind of go through that three-stage process, then we kind of come together and we say, hey, I think this is the case, these are the reasons why. And once we have all that together, then we reach out to the client again and we take them on. So that's our process.
Hey there. I had two questions, but I'll go with the one I'm most interested in for now. You had said that before George Floyd was murdered, it was really hard to convince judges to take a look at police. Were you alluding to the fact that that has gotten better? That sounded like good news to me, but I wasn't sure if that's exactly what you were saying.
So you said the last part you said one more time, sorry.
Yeah, just since George Floyd was murdered and all of the protests and everything, has it gotten easier sometimes to get judges to take a look at, bad cops and bad arrests, et cetera?
Yeah, it definitely is easier now because beforehand, so I never forget when I was actually, my second year of law school was actually interning with the Exoneration Project. And it was crazy because literally you'll talk to a judge or like you'll show evidence of police, like you'll have documents of that this officer engaged like in a repeated pattern of misconduct. But the judge would say, oh, and police officers wouldn't lie about that. Or police officers, they have to do that to get the, and to do their job. And so it was almost like this crazy thing. Like, most of our, like 90% of the job at one point was just trying to say, how can we prove the police officers actually are capable of lying? It's the craziest thing. But after George Floyd, it's almost like, the light bulb went off and, prosecutor judge was like, oh, maybe officers can lie, And I think part of it too, though, as I said earlier, like a lot of these judges, because these are mostly dealing with state court judges, they're former prosecutors themselves. So when you're talking about, attacking, a particular officer, an officer that's been around for 30, 40 years, now you're possibly impacting cases they may have actually prosecuted themselves. And, that just opens up the hornet's nest with that. So that's why you have like a lot of that, it was like a lot of that resistance was there. It's all about keeping the institution upheld. So.
Thank you. We are nowhere where we need to be, obviously, but that's one small piece of good news, at least.
Kate, I see you have your hand up.
Hi. So my question is kind of piggybacking on what Casey was talking about. I mean, my mom was an attorney and she knew which judges were more lenient on certain things. And I mean, I just kind of wonder, when you have such an embedded racist judicial system that you're trying to navigate and trying to, like you said, you're trying to convince people who they themselves probably know that they did things wrong. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like some of these prosecutors and police, they all work together. Even the coroner. I mean, it just is so deeply embedded, this racism. How do you not go completely crazy is, I guess, my question. Because it seems so overwhelming. And I mean, just thinking about it, and as much as you dig, you must find more about judges and prosecutors and things that they have done, and more, you know, inappropriate things. So what do you do with that, I guess, is the question. I don't even know how to ask. It just seems so like, how, you know, if you find out stuff about these people, it's not like on the shows, like you said, you're not just going to present a box of evidence and the judge is going to get kicked out. You know, you're going to have to face them time and time again. So if you could tell how you deal with that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's an everyday battle, to be honest with you. I never forget the first time I went to court. I had my suit on, everything, I had the tie, all that, and I'm going up there, and I was shadowing an attorney. So we're going up, and the judge thought I was the defendant. And it was like, oh, no, I'm actually the attorney. And, you know, that happens actually kind of often, you know. I bring that up because, you know, it does kind of illuminate the issue you were talking about. It's just, it's unfortunate, just the nature of the beast right now. And I guess what keeps me going is that the work I'm doing there, you know, it's, I kind of feel like I have no choice but to keep going. I mean, this is, but the clients look like me, right? I could easily be in their position. Even tomorrow I could be in their position. If the cop decides to stop me over and whatever. And so we have no choice but to keep going. And I guess what inspires me though is that, you know, when we do win, when we do like get things going, when it does make a difference for a particular person, when we are able to eliminate the bigger issues, we can kind of keep pushing the ball forward little by little. And, you know, I don't think any attorney in this work will tell you that one major case is going to break the criminal justice system open and everything's going to be, you know, all good tomorrow. But I think that as long as we keep pushing the ball forward, you know, that's kind of where you have to find your motivation to keep going. So yeah, and also too, I just think about, like, as I said before, you know, a lot of the fighters doing it for folks looking like me, folks who potentially be in my position, well, and position of some of our clients. So that keeps you motivated as well.
Kenneth?
Yes, I'm wondering, it appears to me, and I may be wrong on the timetable, but it appears that after the passage of the 14th Amendment, with the loophole that it had in it, that the criminal justice system, starting at that point, probably before then, but at least at that point, has been geared very much to criminalizing Black people. A lot of people seem to think that that's all been taken care of. I'm not persuaded. I was wondering what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I agree. You know, honestly, I would say that I think a lot of it does go back to the 14th Amendment, even a little bit before. I mean, if you look at the history of our police system, you know, before slavery was abolished, we didn't have a traditional police force as the way we do today. The police force was created as a way to keep slaves, keep newly Black citizens in a slave servile position in society. And so, and I bring that up because a lot of the foundations of our criminal justice systems are based off of that assumption. How do we keep not just African Americans, but the poor, the economically depressed, citizens who don't enjoy the same economic benefits and political benefits as the powerful in this country, as a way to keep them oppressed. And so I really, like I said, it all goes back to that. And when we're talking about what does mean criminal justice reform, it's not just about fixing it for one particular group of society, but how can we actually make a system that's going to be, you know, actually based off these ideals of justice and equality? How does it actually restore communities? If the idea of someone going to jail, just broadly, is you did a crime, you're going to do the time, and then you're going to be rehabilitated, go back to society. That's not how it works. If you look at Germany, for example, if you get a different crime there, you go to prison, you're actually getting resources that will help you address some of the the different particular mental disabilities that you may have had that may have led to their crime. Maybe there was some different economic factors that led to that, but you have the resources there to help you get back into, to help you, rehabilitate yourself and go back to society, and you have a way to become a productive citizen of society again. We don't have that in our system, and I think the reason why is because of these foundational elements. So I completely agree. I think a lot of it is based off of that provision in the 14th Amendment, but also the criminal justice system in itself and its purpose.
John.
Thank you, Paul, for the work you do. It's important work. Did you seek out the exoneration project, or did they seek you out? And how do you get funding to do this? Because it's long cases, take time and money. And so how does that happen? Because I have to believe a lot of the defendants don't have the wherewithal to pay.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I actually reached out to them. So we're actually housed within a firm called Lowy Lowy. It's a civil rights firm. And so Lowy Lowy actually funds us, and then we're actually also based out of the University of Chicago Law School, so we get funding from them as well. And so that's how we're able to take on the cases we handle without any burden on our clients. I learned about Lowy Lowy in 2016 because one of our senior partners helped represent one of the journalists that released was able to get the video of the Laquan McDonald shooting released. And that really interested me, and I kind of learned more about the work they were doing. And they took on a lot of like the John Bird victim cases and a couple other big corrupt Chicago cops. So that drew my interest, and so I had been engaged with them all throughout my time in law school. But then I also heard that they had the wrongful conviction component of the exoneration project. So I was like, oh my God, this is like exactly what I want to do. You guys are pretty cool. So I did that. I had stayed in touch with them, and actually my first year out of law school, I worked for a organization called Illinois Justice Project, and we had done some work with them on criminal justice stuff, and that's how I was able to get over there.
Ivy, I think you had a question, right?
I do. So, just specifically for our group, what are opportunities for groups such as ours to participate in criminal justice reform?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, there's many options, many things. I think one, I would definitely recommend reaching out to. There's a couple of big organizations one called the Coalition in Money Bond. And they have a lot of different organizations that are part of that coalition and work together. And they actually are really big on not just ending money. Well, they were really big on getting everyone together in money bond. But they also are working on different issues around the state and the city, the city of Chicago to different particular criminal justice issues. So I definitely would recommend reaching out to them, and I can actually take a second and put their information in the chat, because they, like I said, it's not just one big organization. They have a coalition organization, so even if one might not be the best fit, there are different about 20 different other organizations that kind of work together on this. I say the second thing, definitely we would love you guys helping kind of publicize our cases. One thing we're really trying to do now is especially for the cases that are involve cops that have a long history or pattern practices of corrupt wrongdoing. We're trying to bring more light to these issues. We want more media attention around them so that the general public will have a better understanding, not just of these cases, but how the wrongful conviction process works, and just to be more wary of just police interaction. So that's we would love your help with that. We're actually going to be having more media, media stuff. I don't know. There's a particular way they've been wording these events, but it's pretty much media type events. We would love to have you there. That'd be very helpful. But those are the things that come off the top of my head at the moment.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question. It's a very simple one, but as an educator, I've learned not to assume in a group like this that everybody would have a response. So my question, simply put, is why does criminal justice need reforming? Because we have people out there who don't see it that way. Why does it need reforming?
Yeah,
I've not done anything wrong.
Well, I think it needs reforming because you can't have, well, one, let me take a step back. So criminal justice system, right, is the reflections of the moral values of the society is supposed to govern, right? Because, ideally, this is like, if any other system, economic, whatever, if any other system is supposed to work fairly, it's supposed to be criminal justice, right? Because if it doesn't work fairly, then none of us can be held accountable. Everything's going to be messed up. We don't, right or wrong is just going to be thrown up in the air. And so I think it kind of basically just that's the answer right there. We can't, if we really want to have a fair system, a fair way of living in society, we have to have a fair criminal justice system. If the system works one way for Trump and works a different way for me, it won't work. And so I guess, yeah, I think it's that simple in my eyes. If we all just are trying to be in a fair, equal society, we have to make the system fair.
Okay, so Paul, Jaden, or Ivy? Any questions from you guys?
I think that's everything I had, but I think that one other thing too, I did want to add when you were talking about those media briefings or things you're going to be starting to do, please keep me in the loop for that, because, I want to publicize these as well and want more people to know about them. So keep me in the loop.
So Evelyn, should I send you the contact information or?
Yes, send it to me and I'll send it to Jaden. Yes.
Okay,
And the team.
We'll do it. Then we'll do that then.
Please, thank you. And I believe we have another question from Kenneth and then from Kate. So go for it, Kenneth.
Okay, I'm wondering, I realize this is outside your legal expertise area, and I really love what you're doing. I just regret that we live in a society and culture where it's necessary. I'm wondering if off the top of your head, you have any suggestions, since we're not attorneys, ways we might work in the broader culture to change it in such a way that it is there are less wrongful convictions and you have less work to do.
Yeah, I think the biggest way is like really publicizing what's going on, right? Because 90% of the battle, to be honest with you, is that the general public doesn't know what's going on with these cases. Like I kid you not. I was looking at Justice Smollett stuff, right? Happened this weekend, and granted, there are different opinions on that, whatever. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, like there's all this media attention on this situation, but there's a whole backlog of cases that are not moving forward that are involved with pretty in-depth police corruption that should be getting the same amount of media or even more, to be honest with you. We actually just filed a petition trying to get a record number, 110 folks exonerated who were victims of Detective Watts. His name is it's Detective Watts and then Detective Reynaldo Rivera. And so these two detectives are just really notorious folks, and they're the things that they've done have not been really given the proper media light attention, because you have smaller cases like what's going on that's taking up all the stuff. And so I say all that to say, I think the biggest thing that would be helpful for organizations like yourselves and others is just keep helping us put the information out there, educating the general public. Educating is the biggest thing that we need right now, and that would be the most helpful.
Kate has another question, then Paul.
Hi. So I was wondering, Chicago does that. Have a bad history. The cops are known for, they had that torture building that they got sued for. And so, judges know this. I feel like that makes it even harder because, like you said, they participated in it. So would it be a helpful thing if you had a spreadsheet of which judges we need to come to light and, endorse whatever the opposite judge is, and kind of, as far as, let's get this person out, and then here's the history, and then instead of associating it with your group, it can be fed to us in a different way somehow, so that we can try and oust it without putting anybody in danger. Because I do believe that with a system so deeply embedded in racism that it does become more dangerous as people learn more. And so, is that something that you guys have thought about? Like, man, this judge has got to get out of here, but you are so busy, so who do you delegate that to? Or who would you delegate that to? Is that something you would do, or what would you like to have happen? Like, have like different groups where you could say, okay, you focus on this judge, here's some information, can you look through it and you'll find plenty, and give it to that other judge so they can use that in their campaign. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really great point. And actually, I something I forgot to mention. That's actually something we're thinking about working on. So as you guys know, Illinois is one of the states where judges are elected. And so one thing, it's been a little tricky because a lot of these judges are, they have a lot of political ties. Most of them are Democratically endorsed, whatever. But one thing that we're trying to do is like get together with a group of different legal organizations to go through all these different judges. And I know I've been focusing a lot on like Chicago County, but like a lot of our cases are all over the state, rural Illinois, central Illinois, et cetera. And there's a lot of judges all around that are just need to be taken out. And so one thing we're trying to do actually is work on getting those lists together of judges so we can, and I believe we might even think about forming like an actual organization with other organizations. We can actually have like an endorsed list of judges to push out for education in the general public. So that is one thing we are working on before the primary elections coming up in January. I can actually send that over to Evelyn too for you guys if you guys like to check it out as well. We love it. Get for your help in getting that list out and just making sure that everyone's educated. Because judges, the way they stay in the office is not because of any particular reason, just no one knows about them. I mean, I didn't know I could vote for a judge for until like a couple of years ago. And that's like the biggest thing. They just sit there and they get retained by the party and keep going. So we put a little pressure on the judges, then at the very most, we can vote them out. At the very least, we can make them more conscious about what they're doing going forward.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. A direction I also wanted to probe. You mentioned about education. Oftentimes within these conversations, of course, we know there's injustice, inequities versus other factors, but a take I always had is a lot of times we're always reacting. I would like to see what does a response look like of how people can properly be proactive to prevent a lot of these measures or make a reduction to a lot of these measures. So you having like the education being played of how you could possibly even work with schools and students. Like I think of me, like I teach at a Title I school. So of course you have different issues that go on disciplinary, et cetera. But like how do we properly show like, hey, like one can have the perception of the world can be against you, cool. But another say, okay, this is how you properly navigate in different interactions, understanding authority. You can't treat people like how you might disrespect others in certain areas as there's consequences to everything. Like how do we possibly get a way of putting education in that lens to be able to teach people about basically real life events that happen, so our society can also grow all together.
Paul, let me make sure I got your question correctly. You're saying how do we go from being we're always being reactive to these issues.
Yeah.
How can we start being proactive?
Correct.
Such reactive.
Correct.
Okay. That's a great question, man. I think about that a lot, man. And part of it, man, is as I said before, getting these issues out there so that you create a culture or environment where you won't let these issues can't continue happening. The other part is that we need more folks like you to become attorneys, become legislators, to be in these positions of power, to pass these laws that will ensure or at least set a good groundwork for stuff like that to happen. It's getting more people engaged, get more people aware of what's going on. And part of this law is part of this culture. So by getting involved, by getting more in tune with, by staying involved, staying with these organizations, writing about it as you guys are doing right now, asking hard questions to folks in power, particularly prosecutors and judges, put them on the stand. I mean, it's a constant everyday thing. I know this may sound like cliche things, but that's really how we do it. Like step by step, everyone plays their role and keep pushing forward. That's how we be proactive. So that by the time it gets to me, you know, it's not, it's, you know, hopefully it won't even get to me, honestly. So that's how we do it.
Hey, my question was back to the judge thing a little bit, and you kind of answered it for Illinois, like you're gonna come up with a list of whatever the word is, judges that you recommend voting for. I live in Colorado where we also vote for judges. And every year that judges are on the ballot, I go through the internet and try calling lawyers I know, and I've tried every way possible to figure out who are these judges and which ones should I vote for and which ones need to go. And I've never had any luck, to the point where I honestly leave it blank. And I'm a super informed voter, so I'm sure nobody, I just wonder if you have any, and I always wish like some of the progressive organizations would, but they won't touch it. And I'm not sure what the politics are there, but how do we vote for judges?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'll start with the why it's so hard to get judges. As I said, one, it's like you said, no one knows about, like as you just mentioned. But the other thing is when you know, when you start organizing against judges, especially lawyers come and do that, you know, they get really scared because it's so hard to beat a judge. So if you don't beat a judge, then your case to go before that judge, well, you know, it won't be the best. But I will say one good thing though is we actually had a test run, and actually there was the chief judge of the juvenile circuit. He was on the ballot. That was last year, and we were trying to see. He was the one that actually was over the Justice Smollett case, but he had actually made a bunch of horrible juvenile decisions. He actually had one thing where he detained a juvenile without by his own authority, without like any probable cause. It was like just horrible, just like a Russian type of judicial system type of stuff. And so we said, okay, you know what? Let's see if maybe we can use some of his cases as a way to kind of, you know, get opposition up against him and see how that goes. And he ended up winning, but he ended up winning by like the smallest margin. It was like a very slim margin that he had ever in his entire judicial career. And I say that because we found kind of a formula that as a way to attack judges, or at least engage with these races, to hopefully, you know, that we hopefully can build on. And so part of that is, like I said, one is getting that list together, getting a list of progressive legal organizations together, creating that list, sending them out. But then two, having organizations such as yourself, like, you know, we talk with you guys, say what we think, you know, we go back and forth, and then you guys go out there and tell your constituents, hey, you know, we got this list together, we're part of this group. This is how we go about it. So, I mean, I say like, it's a very it's still a work in progress. This is like a new thing that folks are starting to do in this space. But we have someone working on this formula, so we'll hopefully, as new cycles come up, we'll see. And another thing too is that some of these judges' terms, and I believe, I have to double check on this, I believe something like a 10-year terms. So that also adds a little bit of problem to it too. I think I had to double check that, but they're pretty long. So it's like, they're not the normal election cycle. So when you're voting for judges, like an off election cycle where no one's really paying attention. So that also plays a little bit of role.
I wonder if there's a Colorado group like yours that I could reach out to. Maybe they'd tell me, because people don't want to talk about it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sure, and
I'm sorry, go on, Paul.
I was gonna say, Evelyn has my contact information too. So shoot me an email and I can, like, you know, send you information or whatever would be helpful. We can kind of, you know, get the ball rolling.
Thank you.
Another thing too, in our area, we don't necessarily, our indivisible group doesn't necessarily work that closely with the Democratic Party, but just recently our statewide Democratic person actually posted on our indivisible site a lady that's running for Supreme Court. So I would advise checking with your local Democratic Party, because they have access to all of that information.
I have done that. They won't.
Pardon me?
Who's the person you said?
Okay, I'll show you. Do you know Christina Zahorik? I'll send you her information then. Christina Zahorik. Yeah. This has just been, I would say, within the last 3 or 4 weeks, she posted that name on our on our site, and she would not have posted that information if the lady was not a Democrat.
Gotcha, cool.
So you might check with them and see if they have access to that information, because last year we actually hosted 3 people that were running for judges. And I felt like even during that time, though, they were a little bit apprehensive in responding. And theirs was more getting out the information about them, because like you said, Paul, people don't know about judges. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what y'all do. I want to know more. We didn't have time to find out more information, but their work is critical, but they're not, it's almost like they're undercover or something. I don't know how to explain it. They're just not available.
Yeah, it is really, I mean, part of it too is that, and let's be very honest, judges are not very interesting. Judges' races are not very interesting at all. So part of it is undercover, part of it is like, you know, it's hard to write about these things in a way that like, it's just appealing to folks that like, who don't care about the legalese stuff like that. And I mean, I personally think it's boring too, some of the stuff, because it's like some of the criminal issues are like such a small amount of issues as opposed to all the other stuff they work on. So that's a really big part of it.
But maybe just the ones that aren't boring, like the ones that need to go, if there was a way to just know at least which ones needed to be voted out, that would be so helpful.
Okay, Stephanie, and I want to welcome you too, because I think among the group today, you are probably the only one that hasn't been here before.
Yes, hi, thank you. I got an email and it sounded intriguing, so I definitely thought I would.
Awesome, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. This is kind of off of Paul Jackson's comment. I'm in Arizona, and when you were talking about like things that we can do maybe outside of like the legal system, I'm working for a nonprofit in Arizona. It's called Reach For It of Tucson, and it's like it's my friend. He's got out of the prison system, and he started running these halfway houses where he takes guys who are exiting prison or homeless people. And so he has made it a point of his to create a relationship with the police department, because it's just something that normally drug addicts and police, you know, they don't get along. And so he's been really working like intently with them and, you know, educating them about, you know, drug addiction and things like that. And so now they are, they call him sometimes if it's like a first time offender and say like, instead of taking this guy to jail, or would you pick him up from jail and maybe take him to one of your houses? And then another thing that we're doing is we keep doing community events with the local police. And so like we're having a kickball game in January with the police department. And I think it's really easy to get angry and to put police on blast for all the things that they're doing wrong. But I do think for like, as far as transformative justice, that it's really important, you know, from people from these different sides of the fence, you know, to kind of come together, because I feel like a lot of time police, of course, they have a whole bunch of terrible interactions with, you know, drug addicts and things like that. And so I think like humanizing maybe people with addiction to them, and also humanizing the police officer with people who normally like avoid any and all interaction with them. And so we're bringing our families together, and, you know, we're trying to like build a more inclusive community where we're not just like eternal enemies to one another. So I think that that's something that's like deeply necessary in our communities, is to like bridge that divide. And I think it also helps with accountability.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Stephanie. I think part of it is like, how do we like supporting? For me, I always believe in like supporting the good police, because there are good police officers out there, and they struggle. They struggle in trying to be good police within the police department. And you know, they're sometimes the biggest allies we have against the bad cops. And so I completely agree with that. And I also think too, we have to not only provide police with like different resources to be able to do their job, but also let's reimagine what does it mean, what a police officer should be doing. A police officer isn't trained to deal with someone who has mental health crisis. So let's put someone who has a mental health crisis in there to help engage with that person. Let's save a police officer for more violent crimes or that nature, you know, or have different tiers of police officers. Let's have certain police officers deal with more violent crimes, and police officers trained to deal with more less crimes of that nature. So I completely agree with you. Unfortunately, because of the nature of my work, I only deal with like, and most of these guys are like from older time though. So that's also part.
Okay, so we're at 101. So I'm going to kick it back to Paul, Jaden, and Ivy for the last words.
I can start by just saying thank you so much. This has been so educational and so important, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. I feel like so many of my questions were answered.
Yeah, I want to echo that too. And it's important that with the activism and work that we're doing, that we are staying informed and are in the loop with everything that's happening, because it's ever-changing world that we're living in. So I do appreciate you, lending us your time and helping us understand this. So thank you.
Yeah, once again, Paul, we got the greatest name in the world, and we got the same acronyms as well. You the second, I'm the second. I'm like, we're doing our part.
There you go, man.
I definitely was thankful, especially coming in to see the direction where we're going, and especially myself. Someone mentioned about the Innocence Project, where I was like humbled to learn about that. Then also engaged as well, as mentioned, what Stephanie shared. As I remember. I think it was my last year, but I remember talking to the Black City Union at my school, and a lot of things were going on. I'm just like, yo, like, how about we have a conversation with campus police? Like, see what is their thoughts and opinions when they see stories of events going on around the country. Like, what is that, like, locker room talk about in your perspective when you see a cop, like, do something where everybody can agree, like, okay, this person is in the wrong. And then seeing someone where it's like, okay, let's have a discussion. Like, how should you engage the police? If someone's just cooperating, and something, of course, talks where it was like, well, maybe one should operate this way. So it's like our training says we have to go this route, but it's easy if you don't want to engage in those conversations because you don't want to be a part of the change. That was something I ran into, and I proposed that. It was like, no, let's not talk to police. I'm like, how does that work? But whatever. But yeah, this is great. I appreciate this a lot.
Thank you guys for having me. And last thing I'll say is, when you think about criminal justice reform, for me, what I always found helpful and more inclusive was talking about in terms of values, right? Because if we can all agree on values, we can all agree on fairness, equality, we can all agree on justice. And if we start from values and then start talking about building solutions around that, you bring a lot more people to the table, a lot more people on the same page. And you can just, even if we agree to, even if there are things we can agree to disagree on, at least our disagreements can be within a certain realm where we can at least work and get something done. So thanks for having me. Keep it up, and that's just a little tidbit I just would leave with you guys on that.
Before you go, we were wondering if you could maybe offer up a call to action.
Yes, call to action. Well, one, as I said before, the biggest thing and I know I've said this a couple times, I'm gonna say it again, like illuminating these issues, helping educate the general public, being a journalist on these issues, writing about these issues. Like, you have no idea how important it is to have that. A game changer in the criminal justice reform world, the New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. I mean, that opened the door to everybody. I mean, people who were like from all different areas of the spectrum, when they read through that book and said, "Oh my God, this is what's happening. This is how it works." It just opened the door, So I would say first call to action is to educate, tell somebody, if you learn anything that would be helpful to tell someone, educate someone about the criminal justice, tell them a day, tell 5 people. The second thing I would say is I'll send Evelyn over information about the coalition, the End Money Bond, reach out to those organizations, get in tune with them, get in tune with their actions. They're continually doing actions across the state, and not just on the End Money Bond, but like on different criminal justice issues around the state, so we keep that things going. And the last thing, the judges, I'll send over to Evelyn information about that going forward. But as that time is coming up, more and more information we get out there, that coordinated efforts on that would be like transformational. If we can put pressure on judges, that completely would change the game in so many different ways. It'll make everyone's lives easier. It'll make my job a little bit easier. But in all, I'd say those 3 things though are the 3 call to actions I would give. So once again, thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, Paul. And thank you to everyone who asked those awesome questions. And Stephanie, I would like to continue contact with you also, because it sounds like there might be something that we can coordinate on as far as even work you're doing there in Arizona. So how do I can give you, can you put your contact information, or I can give you my phone number? What will it take?
Yeah, I'll put my information in here. I'll give you my email and my phone number. Yeah.
Okay, that'll be fine. And you will receive information from Anti-Racist Jubilee Symposia. That's our group. Okay, and based on what I'm hearing, I think this conversation probably needs to continue to the point that we have some organizing to do. If we're going to support what Paul has asked us to do, we can't just say, oh, okay, great, wonderful. I think we have a call to action that we can actually put in action now. So we won't be meeting in January because we're going to take a little bit of time for the group. We really haven't had that time together. But after that, we had an event scheduled for February that we're probably going to postpone now because we see the need here to support what's vital. So we will be in touch with everybody here. And Casey, I'll get that information to you that Paul's going to be sending. And hopefully we can do some coordinating and really get the message out. Do we have any writers in this group? Anyone who is really comfortable with writing? I mean, I don't mind writing. We need writers, sounds like. We need speakers. My granddaughter is a writer. That's her profession. So we need to get this, done. And Jaden is a multimedia, he does this every single day. He's speaking every single day. He's interviewing someone every single day. So we've got the people here. We just got to get together in a group where we're brainstorming, coordinating, and seeing who's going to do what when. We're ready to support you, Paul. We didn't expect this today, but you know what? I have to say this too, and I know we got to go. When we organized, our objectives are celebrate. We can celebrate who we are as people, African Americans, whomever we are, educate, and then cultivate. Those last two components are very important. Today we were educated, and now we have an opportunity to cultivate and just bring all this together where we're working across state lines. It was never our goal to work just in Illinois, but it was our goal to work across state lines because if you go from one state to the other, you're going to see issues just like the ones in Chicago, no matter what state you go to. So if you guys are empowered to do things in your group, in your state, from this group, then we have accomplished our purpose. So that's why we want to cultivate that relationship with you, Stephanie, and it's already in works with Casey and other people. Then we can say, you know what, this is what it's all about. So we really appreciate you guys being here today, sharing your wisdom. And Paul, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But I saw that in 2018 though, so it's nothing new for me. Absolutely. And team, as usual, you were the best. I love you guys. So Paul, I look forward to getting that information from you and just sharing with everybody else. And Stephanie, thank you for your contact information. You guys have a great afternoon and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. You too.
You.
Thanks,
Have a good one.
everyone.
Alrighty.